When talking about difficult games in the gaming industry, it's always the Souls-like / From Software games that are brought up, because to most, that reference means challenge, and not the other incredible features those games have. Well, if we're using that as a benchmark, fighting games are my Dark Souls of video games. I've always enjoyed watching people play fighting games, particularly on some of my favourite properties. My first real foray into them was the Soul Calibur games, when we got Vader, Starkiller and Yoda as guest characters, all on different platforms. I remember renting them from Blockbuster and being obsessed because some of my favourite characters were now in this cool new fighting game. The first I've ever got into a fighting game was Injustice 2. I'm a huge DC fan, it had an excellent story, top tier gear, cosmetics. The problem is, I never had the patience to learn, and it always just felt so unforgiving. So, the multiversal challenges in that game, I just let the AI try and win it for me, and I just sit there and watch because, yeah, it's pretty entertaining. Like I say, I don't think there's a better genre of games out there to just sit and watch someone else play. That's why Evo is so big. It's maybe the only gaming genre where I'm actually happy it's not my fingers on the sticks. Well, that's until Street Fighter 6 came along. Street Fighter 6 did the impossible. It made me feel good at fighting games even though I know I'm not. It taught me what I viewed as complex mechanics that need micromanaging and made it digestible, easy to understand and not overwhelming. It made me feel right at home in a fighting game that no other fighting game before that has done. Finally, a fighting game that I can really enjoy and I can recommend to literally anyone. There's two main reasons for this: World Tour and its modern control scheme. I want to start a World Tour, as anyone new or basically crap at fighting games like me should. This is where I spent the bulk of my 30 hours with the game. World Tour is essentially your campaign mode. It's vastly different to the cinematic offerings of the Mortal Kombat or Injustice series. You create your own character, which shout out to the development team for this creator because you can create some abominations in this game. It is absolutely hilarious going through it. Though, knowing me, I'm boring and therefore I made just a generic looking geezer. Anyway, after setting up your own character, you meet another fighter who your first mentor, Luke, teach you the fundamentals of this game. It's here where you select whether you want to play modern, dynamic or classic. For anyone new to fighting games, modern is the way to go, though more on this later. After learning the very basics, you then go out and explore Metro City, which, look, it's not going to win any graphical awards, and it does look something reminiscent of a PS3 game, but it has a charm and personality to it. World Tour offers you the chance to just walk up to 99% of civilians on the street and just straight up uppercut them, switching you straight into a fight. It's really fun, and is essentially your main method of leveling up your character through the XP you gain from these fights. World Tour though, it does an excellent job of drip feeding you the mechanics of this game through its side missions. There are 3 trainers that you find around the city: Tracy, Alice and Ryan. They will walk you through and have you practice things like drive reversals, spending your meters, parries, throws, super arts, blocking, but they do it in fun and creative ways. Some will ask you to perform a certain combo, break a block a set amount of times, and at the start I thought this was just busy work until fighters in the main campaign story were actually carbon copies of what these trainers were teaching me. So if you skip out, you're missing out a lot. It's excellently done. I think as it starts with the very basics, and the more you complete, the more mechanics you learn and the use cases they become different. It's important to point out, there's still an excellent in-depth tutorial outside of World Tour teaching both modern and classic controls, but I think it's way more digestible to newcomers in World Tour mode. There's also side missions here to complete, though often forgettable if I'm being honest. There's a couple of standouts for sure, but I wasn't blown away by anything here. The main story itself is serviceable. It's not going to emotionally rock you or blow your mind, but it's there as a means to act as a way to get better at the game and provide you with everything you need to succeed. So that by the end, I felt pretty satisfied with it all, and there is some good writing and important messages in it though, to be fair to them. World Tour itself though, it has a charm or an aura about it. That's why its at times cheesy writing never bothered me, or the over-the-top spectacle never put me off. World Tour, like I mentioned, is just nuts in the best way. Going up to practically everyone in the street and using a special move to start a fight, it never gets old and they don't make it boring. Using a flying headbutt as you propel across the street straight into a gang is just so funny, man. You'll fight gangs, robots, fighters, mentors, police, a superhero, and refrigerators. So dumb, and yet it works so well because they all fight in a way that teaches you how to attack and fight back against that kind of style. Fighting arenas, they never look as good as the main stages because you're fighting in random places. Those other stages are way more catered, way more stylized, and just look a lot better fidelity wise. The vistas in World Tour, they can look cool too. Anyway, let's get back to the fight in the World Tour. You'll adopt a master. You start off with Luke, but as the main story progresses, you meet more in Metro City, and then you also get the chance to travel the world, meet the other characters, often sparring with them, and then you'll become their student. When you become a character student, you can take on their style, and as you level up their style, you'll get access to more of their special moves and their super arts. What's really cool though is that you can actually mix and match these characters' special moves and super arts. So you can take Ryu's, I hope I'm saying this right. So you can take Ryu's Hadouken as one of your special moves, but keep Luke's Rising Uppercut, for example. You can create your own unique loadout if you like, fitting exactly how you want to play. Really neat design choice, was a big fan. On top of that, if you struggle, you can use items mid-battle like HP boosters, incoming damage nerfs, or outgoing damage. There's 2 open world sections to explore, Metro City and Old Nashal. Apologies if I butcher that. The rest of the locations you visit as you fly around the world are extremely small, they're just meant to be a hub to meet the new master. I enjoyed these visits. It helped break up the game. Meeting a new master often came with a flashy, gorgeous cutscene introducing them. I will say, for as glowing as I have been around World Tour, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Listen, I am begging, I am on my knees, stop putting gear and loot in every single video game. World Tour almost acts as an RPG. You can equip cosmetics here, which is great and some of them look really cool, but they all have stat bonuses, and then there's enhancing the items and micromanaging the items to get them leveled up, so things like kick power, punch strength. It didn't work for me. Like, thankfully they still have a transmog system, but it should have just been cosmetic only. I cannot be arsed constantly buying and micromanaging gear in these kind of games. It's just a fighting game. Let me have fun. Listen, maybe I'm in the minority, but yeah, I didn't enjoy this. Alongside this, as you progress through the main story, the levels of the fighters that you go up against goes up and up and up. And it really encourages you to grind and do a lot of street battles and apply extra XP buffs, because if you don't, you might batter your opponent, but you barely do any damage to them, and if they're 5 or so levels above you, they can take you out in a couple of hits, even with damage modifiers on. The last stretch of the game in particular, it really made the grind feel real. I understand that maybe there was a sentiment of leveling up as training your way to become the best, but I think they overdid it a little bit, and it never quite soured the experience. But the final mission, the first fighter started level 51 and ended at level 58. I was level 51 entering, and I got to the final boss. If you then quit at the end because you can't beat them, you have to do all the fights in the tournament all over again. And yeah, it wasn't my favourite design choice. You might say clear skill issue, I'm calling bullshit. But speaking of favourite design choices, let's talk the modern control scheme. This is the real deal. The modern control scheme essentially takes complex inputs like right down, and maps it to one button and a directional input, or having pre-made combos like right trigger and triple tap B. It leaves you feeling competent at the game, and like I mentioned, by the end of World Tour, you feel good and accomplished to the point where you're then willing to give the classic controls a go. On top of that, the super arts are more simplified, as it's then creating your own combos. This, however, it doesn't give you as much freedom as the classic controls, and if you fight someone well versed in them, they have more combo potential and variety of attacks. It's a really good trade-off and a natural progression to becoming more competent at modern, and then you feel like you can progress to classic. It doesn't piss off the existing fighting community by accommodating purely to newbies, and it sets the right balance. Capcom should be praised for this implementation. I am aware that Mortal Kombat has lengthy tutorials, but not this level of accessibility to newbies. and I hope it's a mainstay in future fighting games as a good entry point, because you aren't punished for this being your first fighting game in a way that you are in others. After World Tour, I played some more casual matches against harder AI, and I held my own compared to the very first match where I played as Ryu against Luke and barely scraped through on the normal difficulty. It goes to show how excellent a job World Tour acts as a gateway to understanding the game and its mechanics. I'm sure Street Fighter fans who are veterans of the series aren't too interested in World Tour, and to be honest, I don't think it's designed with them in mind. But then again, maybe they just want to spar all the masters and level up. This game though, it just oozes in style. Between its flashy and vibrant art style, its hip hop soundtrack that is belting, and its actual fighting arenas and vistas. I really like the roster here too, all full to the brim with personality, flair and style. Maybe they don't do it for me in the way that Mortal Kombat characters do, but that's fine. This is my first Street Fighter, and I still gelled with all the characters here. I love training and sparring with them in World Tour and learning more about them. Metro City and World Tour has actually got me playing the Yakuza games because I enjoyed this World Tour mode so much, I just wanted more of it in a game where, to be honest with you, I suck less. I don't intend to get into the online scene, but I have to give a shout out to its online battle hub. The ability to chill with friends, fight people there, but also watch others fight. It's a really cool hub that, like I say, isn't for me, but I have to appreciate the level of effort put in here for its online players. I can only imagine how much fun it is. Essentially, a fighting game arcade. That rules. I can't recommend Street Fighter 6 enough to anyone. Newbies to fighting games, moderate experience, or the fighting game community veterans. It just has good vibes from the second you boot it up. It speaks confidence. It's another humongous win for Capcom, who are just on a roll recently, and I've gone from barely caring for any of their IP to practically becoming a Capcom fan. Anyway, enough said. This game is exceptional, it deserves your time, and there's never been a better entrance into the fighting game genre. GG Capcom. If you enjoy this video, please consider smashing that like button. It helps me out massively and I'd really appreciate it. Truth is, if you enjoy hearing me bang on about the things that I love about video games, you're in the right place. Go ahead and subscribe. I've got you covered. Have a terrific day, and I'll catch you in the next one.